Beneath the Tangerine Trees, Chapter 3. There's a strange kind of quiet that settles when two people live side by side, but don't know what to make of each other. In the orchard, days pass in routine, crates, meals, shared space. Conversations stay shallow. Silence stretch longer than they should. And glances, they start to mean more than words. Eugene hadn't expected to care. Han wasn't trying to be noticed. But sometimes, noticing isn't a choice. This chapter takes place before anything was said out loud. No kiss, no questions, just tension. It was early October on Jeju Island, when the morning started cool, but ripened fast under a golden sun. The trees hadn't lost their summer weight yet, and neither had the orchard boys. 2 weeks into harvest, and Eugene had already memorized the rhythm of the place, the way the crates felt heavier after lunch, how the sunlight caught the trees just before noon, how the house creaked even when no one moved, and how Han stared. At first, Eugene thought he was imagining it, the way Han's gaze flicked over, not with warmth, not with interest, but something sharp. Like Eugene was a word that didn't translate well, a sound out of tune. It happened often enough to register, but not often enough to confront. Once, while brushing a fallen leaf from a crate lid, Eugene glanced up and caught it. That look, steady, quiet, focused. Han's expression was unreadable. Not mean, not kind, just something. And then, as if caught doing something indecent, Han looked away. Quick, smooth, like it had never happened. Eugene blinked, a little unsettled. He wasn't doing anything weird, was he? He tugged at the hem of his shirt, wiped the sweat from his neck, and moved on. But now, he noticed more. How Han never stared at anyone else that way. How his eye seems to land just a little too long on Eugene's hand when he peeled fruit. How his silence always arrived one beat too late, like he had to edit something before speaking. Eugene found himself watching back, unintentionally at first. And one morning, when Han's gaze met his mid-sip of orange juice, Eugene looked away first. Fast, clumsy. The glass clinked awkwardly against his teeth. Han didn't flinch, just tilted his head slightly, like he'd been waiting for something ridiculous to happen. You always drink like you're under surveillance. Eugene wiped his mouth, keeping his tone even. Didn't know I was being watched. Han gave the faintest shrug, eyes on the horizon. Wasn't watching. You're just loud. There was no heat in it, just observation. That's Han, he thought. Cool, detached, mildly irritating. Definitely not interested. I was overthinking it. He reached for another slice of fruit. When he looked back up, Han was already gone. Eugene stayed seated, eyes trailing the rim of his cup. Then, a knock at the gate. 3 short taps. Not urgent, just official. He opened the gate to the mailman's familiar silhouette. A nod, a brown envelope, a quiet goodbye. The seal on the front was easy to recognize, too easy. He didn't open it right away. He walked inside, sat at the table, let it sit in front of him. Eventually, he opened it. 1 page, clean folds, clear ink. Mandatory army duty. 3 months from now. Report by midwinter. No surprise, no drama, just facts. Still, it hit harder than expected. Not because he didn't know it was coming, but because now, Here in this place, it felt suddenly real. The letter sat on the table, his hand set beside it. He stared down at both. 2 years, he thought. 2 years of mornings without orchard breeze, without Jeju soil in his nails. He folded the paper once, then again. Outside, the back door slammed. Eugene, what are you doing in there? Building a shrine? We got crates waiting. Eugene didn't answer. The sound of approaching boots. He slid the letter into his lap. The kitchen door opened. Han stood in the doorway. If you're hiding from the sun, I'm not dragging your body up that hill. Then Han saw the paper and Eugene's face. Something shifted, just slightly. What's that? Eugene didn't look up right away. Call-up notice. Mandatory army duty. A pause. 3 months. Han didn't speak, didn't move, didn't joke. Then, you're gonna die out there. Eugene let out a half a breath, part laugh, part something else. Guess I'll have to toughen up. Han turned, grabbed a bottle from the counter, didn't look back. Be ready at sunrise. We start running. The door creaked shut behind him. Eugene sat alone, the paper still warm from his hands. Eugene barely stirred when the floor bed beside him shifted. Then, wake up. A pause. It's not even light out. That's the point. Shoes, 10 minutes. Unless you want to collapse on day one and die from humility. Eugene cracked one eye open. Han was already dressed to run. The man was annoyingly prepared. They met at the edge of the farm pass, just as the first light turned the horizon soft gold. Jeju's old stone wall passes stretched ahead, lined with black volcanic rock, built to guide the wind and break it at once. Han ran ahead with ease, only slowing when Eugene's steps got too ragged to ignore. Then, to Eugene's surprise, slowed his pace, just a bit. At the top of the hill, a break in the stone revealed the sea, morning light flickering off the tide, like someone had scattered silver leaves across the waves. Han stopped, tossed his water bottle aside, reached for his shirt, and peeled it off. No hesitation, just off and over. Eugene caught it in the corner of his vision, and then fully. The light hit Han's back like something intentional. Broad shoulders, tanned skin. Eugene looked away, and then looked back. Then, almost without thinking, he tugged off his own shirt. By the time he realized what he'd done, Han had already turned halfway toward him. Their eyes didn't quite meet, but something in Han's expression paused. Not smirking, not teasing, just paused. Then, like nothing happened, Han looked back to the sea. Eugene stood there, sweaty, shirtless, unsure why his heart was suddenly louder than his footsteps. The sea stretched wide and blue, framed by the uneven ridges of Jeju's coast. Neither said anything at first. Eugene bent forward, hands on his knees, lungs burning. Han stood beside him. Then Han pulled out his water bottle, took a slow drink, turned, and wordlessly held it out. Eugene blinked, then took it. Their fingers didn't touch, but the closeness sparked something anyway. He drank, too fast, and wiped his mouth on the back of his hand. You didn't throw up. Impressive. Han smirked. The kind that never stayed long enough to read fully. Eugene bent again, catching his breath. Dust on his legs, sweat on his brow. Then Han said, Come on, keep moving. Cool down walk. or your legs will lock. You're not my... Never mind. They started walking again. The orchard was quiet as they re-entered its shade. Cooler now, softer. Han tossed him his shirt without turning around. Try not to die before breakfast. Eugene caught it, didn't answer. But when Han glanced over his shoulder a moment later, Eugene was still looking at him. Night crept in slowly. The orchard dimmed behind the farmhouse, swallowed by shadow and the hush of insects waking up. In the courtyard, string lights buzzed softly overhead. A small grill glowed at its center, smoke curling into warm night. Eugene sat cross-legged at the table, sleeves rolled, a bottle of soju open between them. Across from him, Han crouched by the grill, tongs in hand, flipping thick slice of Jeju black pork. The scent was intoxicating, char, fat, oil. Neither had spoken much, but there was no tension, just anticipation, something too quiet to name. Han poured for Eugene first, then himself. They clinked glasses without ceremony. To pain, Han said. And protein, Eugene replied. They drank. The pork sizzled. A drop of fat popped onto Han's wrist. He hissed, shook it off. They ate in silence for a while. Meat, sauce, garlic. Another round poured. Then Han, without looking up. You gonna talk about it? Eugene paused mid-bite, didn't answer. Han didn't push, just reached for the tongs again. Eugene watched the way Han's fingers moved, precise, relaxed, familiar. It was so casual, this whole night. It shouldn't have felt loaded, but it did. The third shot hit harder, not enough to blur, just enough to unravel the careful quiet Eugene carried. Eugene softly said, It's just 3 months. That's what they all say, Han replied. The sentence landed flat between them. Eugene laughed, not quite bitter. You sound like a war vet. Mandatory service does that to you. A beat. Besides, someone has to teach you to run straight. Eugene rolled his eyes. Consider it emotional prep, Han smirked. When they finally stood, their plates were empty. The soju bottle was down to its last drops. Eugene gathered the dishes. Han grabbed the grill tray. Inside, the kitchen was dim and quiet, just the sound of water and ceramic. Eugene stood at the sink, sponge in hand. They didn't speak, but something in the silence felt more honest than before. Like they said everything without really saying anything. The water ran, the sky darkened, and somewhere in that quiet clatter of dishes, Eugene realized he didn't want the night to end. Han set the last dish on the rack, dried his hands, stretched. Then as he turned to leave, tomorrow, 6 a.m., jog, sleep tight. Eugene stared at the sink. So much for sleeping. Next morning, the run had wrecked Eugene's calves. He nearly tripped twice and gasped through half the incline. Han, on the other hand, jogged beside him like it was casual stroll. Now steam rolled out of the bathroom. Han emerged barefoot, tower low around his hips, another draped around his neck, like he lived his whole life walking out of showers in front of someone else. Eugene was still toweling sweat off his neck when their eyes met. He looked away instantly. It wasn't about surprise anymore. It was about what he noticed now, what he let himself notice. Kitchen's almost empty. I'm going into town, Han said, grabbing his keys. You need anything? Han asked. Eugene didn't answer right away. I'll be back soon. Then the door clicked shut. Eugene wandered the kitchen with no destination. It was only 10 minutes later that Eugene realized he hadn't touched his coffee. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was wrong. The room felt like it had been paused. He washed a single cup, sat at the table, peeled a tangerine, but didn't eat it. His phone buzzed once. He didn't check. He opened the drawer, closed it, and opened it again. Eugene didn't do anything useful, didn't leave the house, didn't play music. By the time the screen door finally creaked again, Han stepped in, wind in his hair, sleeves rolled up, face slightly flushed from the breeze. Eugene looked up so fast, he nearly dropped the fork in his hand. Han didn't comment, just reached into one of the bags and held something out. Neatly packed gimbap. You didn't ask, but I figured. Eugene took it without speaking, opened it, ate one piece, chewed slowly. He didn't smile, didn't thank him. Han moved through the kitchen like he'd never left, unpacking groceries, filling the fridge, humming something tuneless under his breath. Eugene didn't speak. He just watched. It wasn't attraction exactly, not just that. It was the ache of missing someone before they're even gone, and realizing how much space they take up, even in silence. Han straightened, caught him looking. Then very lightly, Han raised an eyebrow. What? Never seen a man put away tofu? Eugene blinked, looked down, shoved another gimbap slice in his mouth. Han smiled, just a flicker, and returned to the fridge. No more was said, but something between them, quiet, curious, kept unfolding. The morning passed, not with confessions, not with questions, just a quiet rhythm, relearning itself. Eugene didn't say he missed Han. Han didn't say he noticed. But between the fridge door, the shared food, and the look that lingered, something unspoken moved. Not loud, not clear, but closer. Thank you for listening to Beneath the Tangerine Trees. The story will continue.
Beneath the tangerine tree.